A very good evening. Welcome to Cobra TV. This is Sin Bin-cang right here on our Cobra Rugby Club Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel. Welcome. I'm Rashid Saleh Rat, and alongside with me, my usual partner in crime, Dylan, for a very special Tuesday night. It is the first Tuesday of October for us, and as usual, we have our Sin Bin-cang show. But first and foremost, for all of you out there, thank you very much for joining us. We've already got 8 viewers. That's really fast, and 1 heart. Okay, great. First and foremost, just like to let you know, of course, the lunch promo at the club is still ongoing ever since the RMCO began. So we do have 10% discount on all food items, as well as free iced lemon tea with any mains. So that's your free iced lemon tea when you order our mains, and that's the 10% discount on all food items as well. Now, of course, if you'd like to know more about the lunch promo, do give us a call at 012-212-7000. Ask for Mr. Boone, and he'll be more than glad to help you with that. I know you're always smiling when I say Mr. Boone, but but yes. So so this is of course Sin Bin-cang. First and foremost, Dylan, since you're the vice president of the club, do you want to update everyone as to what's happening with training right now?
Yeah, so training for all age groups, training as club as a whole has been suspended, pretty much. Of course, you all know the current situation with the COVID-19. So we're just taking precautions. So we are holding off. So we're suspending training. So far we've put it for 2 weeks. And then we'll see how it goes. So we're hoping things settle down, and then we can get back to it. So in the meantime, I'm hoping everybody practices their social distancing, practicing all the safety procedures, masks, wash your hands. I think we have enough information all over the place. So just practice that, and then everything comes back down, and we can get back to rugby.
That's right. So there is no training until further notice. But first and foremost is, of course, safety of not just our players, but everyone involved with the club, as well as people in the rugby fraternity. Welcome, salam to Muhammad Effendi, one of our regular viewers. Selamat malam also to you. Of course, it's strange things have happened on Cobra TV. We've had Royal Selangor Club being our guests, KL Tigers being our guests, and now we've got guests from across the causeway, down south, of all people, and I actually quite been looking forward to this. Of course, who better than who I would call, and he doesn't know this. We some of us, or rather, we would call him the Fandi Ahmad of rugby.
Really?
Oh,
wow.
He's like feeling pressure. So let's legendary Singapore player, as well as he is the rugby service Asia manager for World Rugby, Ridzal Saat. Just look at his face like.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Assalamualaikum to rugby friends in Malaysia. Hi guys.
That's a bit of a shock, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It is.
Thank you very much for joining us, and on short notice, actually, because I wanted to have you on, and I realized that it would be very good to hear what's happening down south from our Singapore neighbors, because obviously this pandemic has affected everyone across the world, even more so our northern neighbors, as well as our southern neighbors, which is you guys down south. And the rivalry in the past has been across all sports, but rugby has been a bit different. But although we have had some very rugby clashes over the years. I remember even being on used to cover and commentate for the the Asian Five Nations That was fun, especially when Singapore and Malaysia were playing, especially when we had to play down in Singapore as well. Anyway, so first and foremost, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for
Obviously,
sure.
First things first, I need to ask you, what's the situation down south for just to give just a wide view of what's going on with players and what's happening with them and rugby in general at the moment.
In terms of sports and also in terms of rugby, I think for the best of the last 6-7 months, it's been basically no activity, and then about 1-2 months ago, teams were allowed, or people were allowed to, train with social distancing, five to a group, and then of course practicing whatever's required according to the government regulations. To be honest, I actually checked on the Singapore Rugby Instagram actually a few days ago. The GM Daniel Mark announced that the restart of the league, the senior men's league, is actually postponed to next year, 2021. But at the same time, I believe the men's team and the women's team, I think maybe the men's team started training yesterday, just for round again, practicing social distancing, no contact, basically fitness work and maybe ball work. So it's been, I wouldn't say it's bleak, it's becoming better, because in terms of sports, we try to take reference from the professional sports teams here in Singapore, and that's actually football. So football, they were training 5 to a group, which was fairly challenging for professional players, and they just started whole team training about 2-3 weeks ago. But the restart of the football league, we don't know when. No announcement as yet, but I think it seems to be on a positive curve upwards.
All right. Okay. I've always wanted to ask this. We always begin this with all our guests. How did you start rugby?
How did I start rugby? So when I was in primary school, there was basically no rugby. I come from a big family of 14.
Oh, that's 4 more than me.
Yeah. So I'm the youngest of 14. And all my sisters and brothers played some sort of sport. Actually, one of my brothers used to captain the Singapore football team, Ridzal Saat, back in the heyday.
Wow.
He was number 12. He's number 12 in the family. I'm number 14. So in primary school, I mean, our time, I found out we're all about the same age. Our time you can play as many sports as you can, but there was no rugby in primary school. So I went to the best school in Singapore. I have to say that I went to Raffles for secondary school, and then there was rugby. But I didn't start playing rugby from the get-go. So I played football. I played sepak takraw. I joined Scouts, and then I was in the Malay Society. And when everything ended, we had nothing to do on the weekend. So two of my friends and myself decided that at 13 we need to do something on the weekend, and we finally joined rugby after being tested for about the best of 6 months to join rugby. So rugby was like my 5th extracurricular program in school when I was in secondary 1 or Form 1 in Malaysia equivalent.
Right.
So 12, 13, I started learning how to play the game.
Right. And what position? What was your first position?
Because I joined the team quite late. So usually in Singapore, age groups is under 14, which is your Form 2, Form 1, and then under 7. So I obviously couldn't get a place. They just put me on the wing, but I remember I didn't get to play. I didn't get to play at all because I joined like a month before the tournament.
That's so funny because everyone's put on the wing when they first start up. Even I was started at 9 years old. I was on the wing.
The team won. The team actually won, and all I remembered was one of the senior boys was actually only 1 year older than me. He was asking me to break dance at some function after the final. So that was my memory of my first year of rugby.
Okay. So this picture, tell us a bit about that. What's happening here?
I think this was almost, this is about 97, 98. My 3rd year working for Singapore Rugby.
Right.
And I was coaching this school in Damai Secondary. So I was a rugby development officer of Singapore Rugby, my first job. and I think we were at the end of either at the end or the start of the second tier finals for that year, under 17. Yeah, so that school had an interesting story because the boys told me they all thought they had football as a extracurricular activity, but when they turned up for training, it was rugby training. There are no football in the school, so they all tricked into rugby. This was before I actually started coaching them, about 2-3 years before that. Yeah.
This leads me to a question, because we understand you played rugby a lot. Then how did you transition into the development, into that, to become a RDO, be a coach?
So it's a fairly interesting story with a Malaysian connection, actually. So in 1994, I was still in university, in final year university, and Malaysia hosted the 1995 Rugby World Cup qualifiers, or the Asian Rugby Championship. And Singapore played in the tournament in KL. And we were grouped with Korea, Thailand, and Hong Kong. And we lost both games, the first two games against Thailand and Korea, and then we were going to play Hong Kong for the last game. And the coach had to go home back to Singapore because he was invigilating in university exam. So we were left without a coach.
Those days,
coach and a team manager, and we had two huge defeats against Thailand and Korea. So I was playing fullback, and at halftime was 100-0.
Wow!
So I can't remember whether it was 4 points for a try or 5 points for a try.
Was it Singapore that was? You had the biggest rugby score, right? That was Singapore. It was that game. I remember that game. Also,
it was 164-13.
Wow, I remember that game. Yeah. I was we were like cricket score. Yeah.
So what happened that game was, I think, to be fair to Singapore Rugby, I mean, it's still being managed by volunteers, but back then it was really run by volunteers, and everybody put in their time and money. But I think the players who went for training and for a tournament, I think it didn't really hit us on the magnitude of the tournament until after the first game. And then we were just wondering what's going to happen for the next two games. Yeah, at halftime it was 100 points. The team manager, Alfred, I'm sure you guys might have heard of him, Alfred from SEC, Alfred Lee.
Yeah.
He was actually team manager, but he had to be caretaker coach for that game. He spoke to us and tell us, try to keep it below 100. And I turned left and right to my teammate, how are we going to keep it below 100? So, but I think what sparked off from that game was a huge article the Sunday morning after that game on the back papers of the Straits Times in Singapore, and we never had coverage. As far as I played rugby for a long time, before that, we never had like a full pitch coverage on Sunday morning. Usually it's Premier League football, right?
Yeah.
Sunday morning.
Wow.
So it's full pitch about the captain, Terence, my teammate, blasting Singapore Rugby. And I suppose that set the motion of Singapore Rugby revamping itself. Like Dr. Chan Beckman, the president, decided that they need to revamp Singapore Rugby, because we had our glory days in the 70s. We had like Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Team of the Year at the Sports Award in 77 with the Singapore team. So when I graduated around June the following year, 95, Singapore Rugby had hired a full-time CEO, an Aussie guy from Sydney, and he in turn went to look for staff, and I became one of the first 4 development officers, a crazy guy working in sports back in the day, like who would actually work in sport, let alone in rugby development.
Yeah.
So that was my first job.
Wow. There's this picture of credit Azli Bota. Of course, you said you were number 15. So this, what do you remember this game?
I did. I do. This game was in Thailand. I think in '96, it was a former Asian quadrangular. So
that's right.
We had Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. And this was like a new look team. So I think before '96, before this game, I think Singapore Rugby has not won a game for a very long time in 15s. We were very close to beating Malaysia at the 1995 SEA Games. I think it was like 3-4 points or 4 points in Thailand, but we lost. and we had a good group of youngsters coming through. Not me, I wasn't young, I was only like 26. And then the year before, 96, we actually beat Malaysia for the first time in the under 23 shield. If you remember, we used to have an annual game under 23.
Yeah.
So I was 24. So I went to watch that game in I think one of the army camps in KL. So we won that game.
Yeah.
And then that game, the photo that Azli posted was our first senior test win in at least a decade.
Yeah.
And it's against our rivals, Malaysia. So I think that few years actually turned around our fortunes on and off the field.
Yeah, because we always talk about
a lot of history with Malaysia.
Yeah, because you know the Malaysian under-23s always pride themselves on never having to lose or hardly ever losing to Singapore.
But you guys had a very solid team around those time. Players were, I think, big, lanky, fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you got people like Lehman. I mean, you know a lot of them. I mean, we've got all these vets that half of them we all know. Jude was from Cobra. You got Lehman there. I mean, Lehman lives near me actually. I see him jogging or jog walk nowadays. But and so you guys were literally. I mean, I used to play with Pai Tamis. He played for us at Cobra for about a season. So and he was my senior. I used to shout at him because I was playing scrum half at the time. So and I started off with Jude as well. So there's we've got very similar people around us. Now this is one photo that I'd like for you to explain.
So when we first started
Singapore man.
So basically, okay, this thing, like when we worked for Singapore Rugby back then, we had maybe about staff of 5 or 6, and rugby was really a relatively new game. We had to do anything and everything just to get ourselves out there.
Yeah.
So fortunately or unfortunately for the people in Singapore, the editor or the writer was a friend of mine from uni, and I think he needed to fill a space. I think I was the last one to be filled up out of 10 people. People with like really unique or not very mainstream jobs back then, 97. Yeah. So there you go. That's where the photo came from.
Okay. All right. Okay. What are the 2 photos? Now, tell us a bit about. Okay, so rugby obviously, had a kick up the butt when we lost, and then went into rugby development. How over the years, what has improved in terms of one, grassroots, that's one, and 2, obviously the senior development. We'll talk about how when naturalization came in, but pre that, what was Singapore rugby like in terms of your grassroots, and one obviously senior? We, as you told us earlier, how there was a
So I suppose pre 95, when Singapore rugby was purely voluntary and there was no full-time staff. I think we were in the doldrums. I suppose we didn't had any major wins, or even in terms of development, we just left it. There was a development committee and all that, but I think all the work was done through schools and clubs. And then from 95 to 98, 99, in 95, the CEO actually had open trials for the national team in preparation for the SEA Games. So like 160 over players actually turned up for trials. I think that created a bit of buzz in the media. And then for us as development officers, so we went in cold, right? I didn't have a coaching cert going in, so we had to learn all this by the bat. We had a lot of links with New South Wales Rugby Union, pretty lucky. And we had people like Andrew Blades, if you remember him, Wallaby Prop, actually coaching the forwards for the SEA Games. And then we had Campo coaching us for the 98 Asian Championships for the back. So we grew, I suppose, very fast in a very short span of time, from 95 to around 2000. And then I think the national team just grew because we had a huge insertion of very young players, like Easy. So he started playing when he was 18. So around his age, there was about 10 to 15 players who came through with him. And then there were also younger players. So we were fairly lucky in that sense. I suppose people were more keen to maybe have a shot at going for trials with the Singapore team, where before, when you don't have success, it's always a challenge to attract younger players, right? Because we're all amateur players, we're not professional players. So we went for like 20 schools to 100 schools in 3 to 4 years, which was quite for a small country in Singapore. It's quite a huge success, I suppose.
As in, you went to schools to coach, or
we did. So what we did was we did actually road tours, where we had a school helping us, and another school helping us with showing what's tag rugby. And then I was thrown the loud hailer, and I was actually giving commentary. I've never done it before in my life. So when the game was going on, and we give free packages to schools to pick up the game. But again, with development, as schools become competitive, I was coaching about 10 schools when I first started in the East Zone. We divided into 4 or 5 zones in Singapore. Schools wanted, obviously, their own coach. They didn't want to share the coach. So it became a challenge, but a good challenge in that sense. And I suppose one of the longer term benefits from that, 20 years, 25 years on, I have actually former teammates or peers who are still in full-time rugby coaching. It's a viable career here in Singapore. It is challenging, it's competitive, but I have guys who've been coaching since late 90s up to now. They are just coaching rugby. It's sustainable.
That's like the Michael Lyons of Malaysia.
I know.
Well, it's actually stopped now, but
one of the top rugby educators is from Singapore, Jean.
Yeah.
Because I did my L2 course with him, under him.
Jean is actually my peer. He's actually the regional training manager for Asia, and I think hand on heart, I can say he's probably one of the best in the world in terms. There's 6 of me in the world. There's also 6 of Jean covering the regions in the world. So I mean, of course not Jean, but other people. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're small, so we are pretty lucky in that sense. We are quite small as opposed to Malaysia, but
how?
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, it's a bit different for us, I think, because we just by sheer numbers compared to Singapore, we just had more, and obviously more rugby schools coming up. But how did you become? You said you was going up to 100 schools. What was that trigger that made it popular? What made it? That got people to and Asian parents. When it comes to physical sports, it's like education comes first. Even more so in Singapore.
I think there's many ways of doing it, and I believe now a lot of the countries in Asia is actually replicating it. So we had to go at different levels. Of course, success of the national team will help. And then we sort of create role models, like they position the development officers as people who are successful in studies, relatively successful in studies, and also in sport. And then we basically were thrown into the deep end ourselves, the development guys and the staff. Like we did presentation to the Ministry of Education. We did presentations to the principals and the schools. And I think we were fairly lucky in that we had Peter Randall, our first CEO. He was very driven. He was a rugby man. So and then I suppose for me myself, it was just wanting to see the game succeed at different levels. Coming on the back of a 164-13 defeat that came. Funnily enough, one of my future teammates was actually on tour with his school in Malaysia, with St. Andrew's School from Singapore, and he actually watched that game as a teenager. And he told me after he watched that game, he actually wanted to quit playing rugby. Because it was so embarrassing. But he actually persevered, and he ended up representing Singapore. So he played with me, or I played with him in the team. So he actually told me the story when he broke into the team. So I think it was like a movement. People started training more seriously, coming early to do, we never seen before. At least I've never seen before, coming to practice at cakes, like line out the scrums, after work. So it's really challenging. Like when you speak about rugby in Asia, we are mostly amateur players, right? So it's very motivating to see your teammates coming from school or from work coming in early. Like myself, we were a bit lucky. Our office is just next to the pitch. So we finished work at 5, and then we hang around, speak to the players, and we started training. But these guys are rushing from work, from their careers. And I'm sure you guys know it as well as playing for our country.
Yeah. We were lucky to have a boss who was a rugby man, and half the office were all, 3/4 of the office all rugby players. So it was we're lucky in that sense as well. Okay, but what would you say? Of course, you talked about the heydays of the 70s, but ever since then, what would you say was probably one of the best? I mean, I'm not going to talk about I will talk about the Malaysia-Singapore rivalry, but just the Singapore national team. What was the
level as well?
Yeah. Since that, I mean, we're not even going to go see games yet. Let's talk about the heydays. What would you say was ever since that big loss would be where and again pre-naturalization, natural players coming. Where would you say was Singapore was?
Is there a particular date to say pre-naturalization?
Sorry,
pre-naturalization. Is there a particular date that?
No. Actually, there wasn't. As far as I remember, Asia Rugby or AFU back then, Asia Rugby Football Union, they had a ruling of something like citizens and then residents.
Yeah, or
but
anyone
even in the squads that I've played before '95, we've had residents or expats who've been based in Singapore who've played for us. I think only maybe after '95 there was an IRB ruling then of 3 years, and now it's 5 years.
Yeah.
But we had, in fact, of course the quadrangular tournaments we didn't have any expats, but the Asia tournaments like the Asia Rugby Championship in '98 when we hosted, we had, I think Singapore had about three or four expat out of the squad of 25, 26 in the team.
Yeah. We had as well.
Yeah, if you say what was the high, I think as Singapore Rugby, probably that first win over Malaysia at the under 23s. No, because we haven't. I think even at under 23s we haven't won a game for a long time. And then the following year, of course, beating Malaysia at the quadrangular, we were actually sort of, or maybe we just thought ourselves favourite to win all the game against Sri Lanka and Thailand, but we lost the first 2 games. And I remember the Thailand game, there was a 3-hour post-mortem by the coach. Like, I didn't even start the game. I only played like the last 10 minutes and we couldn't win the game. I remember we had a 3-hour post-mortem in Thailand. We couldn't leave the hotel for the entire week, and then luckily we beat Malaysia. I mean, unfortunately for you guys, but luckily for us, we beat you guys. Because if you had lost the game, I wouldn't know what would have transformed the game in terms of
post-mortem.
3-hour post-mortem.
Yeah, we got really blasted by the coach. Like we were blasted as a team, and then after that individually where we went wrong. So I was a bit lucky because I played the last 10 minutes. I didn't get that much because but I think that was a spark in terms of our national fortunes. And then '98 when we hosted the Asian Championships, we got to play at Kallang at the National Stadium. And '97 we hosted China when they were welcome to the World of Rugby. Also we played at National Stadium. So those 3 dates or those 3 tournaments were probably how things turn around in highlights. Yeah.
All right. So Azli Botat says hello to you as well. So he's watching the game.
What I will do, I will stop commenting on shows, so I won't be invited for any shows.
You're more than welcome to ask us questions if you wanna. If it's too much of a one-way street, ask us a question. Make it 2-way street.
That's what Dino did. Dino.
Everyone, Dino Heroini.
Okay, let's talk about the senior Malaysia-Singapore rivalry. Obviously, not just as a player, but as someone involved in the early days of Singapore Rugby, in management and all that. What was it like? Was it very different to playing other countries? Because in other sports, especially football, you will always get that kind of rivalry. Was it the same with rugby when Singapore played Malaysia?
Okay, my earliest memory of playing Malaysia was actually when I was playing for Raffles Junior College at Jonah Jones.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that's my first memory of playing I wasn't playing for Singapore. I was playing for school from
And
Singapore.
Marbo. Oh, now that's a long time ago.
So that was in 1989. Sorry, 89. Yeah, 89. So Form 6. And we were quite a flash team. Like, we went all the way to the finals and we were the favorites. And we actually played Royal Military College in the finals.
RMC.
But my experience from that tournament is like whenever we step onto the pitch, right, we were booed constantly. So, like, for me as a 17-year-old, it was scary, and also I think you learn how to shut up at a very young age. And then the finals was a story in itself, and the post match as well. So we played Royal Military College, and at halftime we were down 3 tries. It was a 10-minute final.
Right.
And then second half we came back to 2 tries, and then the referee just ended the game.
What? Malaysian ref.
Yes, this is a story I still share with the MRU officials. And
I'm really not surprised. I was hoping for something I didn't realize. Yeah.
I think the first half was 10 minutes, and then the second half was 7 minutes. Like, it ended. We were on the up. Obviously, we scored 2 tries, both under the post. I still remember scoring a try, and then I think we have this match. At least draw and then go sudden death or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then the game just ended, and then we step off the pitch. So obviously everybody was supporting RMC, right? Royal Military College, right? And then there was this one particular 10 marquee, right? The only one that was actually cheering us. So it was like wondering, what the hell, right? Like, are they mocking us? Are they just like, And unfortunately, one of my teammates actually turned around and did something to that 10. So unbeknownst to us, the 10 actually belongs to the police. So they were actually supporting us,
against the army.
Police.
Deputy High Com of KL or whoever was on the 10.
So
of course,
Zaman Khan. It must have been Zaman Khan's time. That he was the president of MRU at the time.
So
this is 80s.
Whoever that was under the 10 was offended because one of the young players did something that we shouldn't do. So we had to publicly apologize and all that. But what you say about rivalry, my friend shared photos from the tournament. We were, after the game, we were just normal. There was a lot of photos with us and the RMC guys were smiling, and then we were invited to the dinner at the RSC, the one in the city.
The club.
But I think that actually, you might be unfair refereeing, but at the end of the day, it's just a game, right? So, that was my first memory of playing against Malaysia. I think, and then the next few times I played for Singapore against Malaysia, we didn't win. We just came against a very hard, tough Malaysian team. It was like 30-40 points each game. So.
Did you play any club rugby in Singapore? Or were you attached to any club?
Yeah, I did. I actually played for. Before was my first club was the Old Reflection Association.
Right.
That was in the 90s, and then obviously I played for Uni, and then I played for Blacks.
Singapore Blacks.
Yeah, I think the team that I played for was probably the only team that won the Blacks stands against ever, I think.
Yeah.
I think NS Wanderers that year.
Right.
There was one, I can't remember the name, the winger that did the horse kick. It's a really good winger who played in the sevens on the wing.
Serevi?
No, Malaysian guy.
Oh, no, because Serevi played for Wanderers as well.
I know. Yes, I know Serevi played.
You're talking about in the mid-90s?
Yeah, 95. He was in the SEA Games squad in 95, and then I think he was in
was it Ujang, Farid?
It wasn't Ujang. He was a solid guy on the right wing, and he was the only one who can do the Serevi.
I think
I can't remember his name, but he's a really good player.
Okay. That one we'll have to ask. We'll have to check.
I played for Blacks, and then when Singapore Rugby started, we created a few clubs like Bedok Kings and Wanderers. So I was sort of one of the founding guys for Bedok Kings because I was forced to go Bedok Kings, which was good. And then I went back to Blacks. And I stopped playing.
Now, actually.
Sorry?
Ladies now. There's a good ladies.
Team. For both Bedok and Blacks, there's very strong women's team.
Okay. So what do you call it? So that I was just mentioning the rivalry. So from then the transition into management of Singapore Rugby. First
So the
and
name-
foremost, we go to
Correct.
World
Name
Rugby.
is Husaini. I think as he's speaking of the face. He says
Sorry?
is the player's name Husaini? So Botak just typed his name down, typed the name down there. The
Kusaini. Kusaini.
Not
Kusaini.
Husaini. It's another guy. It's shorter than Husaini. I know who's
If,
Husaini.
if shorter than Ujang, it must be.
It's about the same size as Ujang, but it's very stocky.
We'll get back to him. Sorry, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to your
Kusaini is
question.
quite big.
And apparently he's quite a rebel.
Quite a rebel.
Yeah, but he was a very good player. He was the only guy who can do the hitch kick.
Not
Rebel
Ein.
kind of
Wasn't
describe
Ein.
Asian team. I
Maybe
think.
shorter.
I did ask when I was traveling with the team as team manager in the late 2000s, 2010s. I did ask what happened to him, but they say he just sort of disappeared from the
Fade
scene.
away. There are quite a few happen like that. Okay, so the transition to management for Singapore Rugby. What was the one of the biggest, I suppose, challenges later on for you guys before
I think I was made GM fairly young, about 30, 31. Obviously, I mean, all of course on hindsight, right? I suppose the experience on hindsight wasn't there. I had the option to leave Singapore Rugby. I was offered a job somewhere else with MediaCorp actually to do marketing for the sports channel in the MediaCorp. I actually signed on a dotted line, and Singapore Rugby convinced me to stay to take up the challenge of being general manager. So I suppose on hindsight, maybe if I had more experience, maybe a mentor, I would have done better in the role. I mean, we did have some highs. We got the bid to host the first World 7 series, if you remember.
Yes.
We were twin with Malaysia in 2002. And then, of course, there were some lows, we had, I mean, I haven't shared this before, but it's news, right? We had a colleague of mine who sort of ran away the money from Singapore Rugby. So there was quite some dark years in Singapore Rugby. But I think the rugby itself obviously suffered a bit because of that. But we had some fairly successful years on the pitch with the 15th team, because we won 2004. We won the division. Now it's Division 1. Back then it was called Division 2. Right? The only thing was we never got promoted.
Yes.
We won for a few years. We won in 98, Division 2. We won in Amori in 2000. 2002 we lost, and then 2004 we won again. But all those years we didn't get promoted for whatever reason. We never got promoted to the top league. But I think if we got promoted, also we'll struggle. To be really honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There's Saiful Azwan said, was it Rostam Effendi? Sija Eke Chocho.
Maybe not. I don't remember his name. Rostam. Yeah.
Maybe it's him. Okay, let's talk about quickly the and then later on. I mean, more recently, when I suppose because Malaysia went the same route where we split. We had the 7th team and then the 15th. 7th team, obviously, there was a lot of focus on Singapore 7th team because obviously with SEA Games being the target.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was it an exciting time to have a team that you could focus on apart from the 15th?
So. In 2007 was when Rugby Sevens returned to the SEA Games in Thailand. So back then I was actually team manager. I think it was great that Rugby Sevens went back to the Southeast Asian Games. So there was a focus, with the Sports Council and the NOCs in general across Asia. A multi-sports competition is held in a high regard, right? The team did well. I think the team we won bronze. I think we got bronze. I think Thailand obviously won the finals. They beat the Philippines. Again, we beat Malaysia in the 3rd and 4th.
Yeah.
in Thailand.
Yes.
I
was there covering.
Yeah, and all I remember about the tournament was I was team manager. Of course, I was in the background, but the players, our players, the girls did very well as well. They won silver. I think Thailand was still
Thailand is still
very strong.
Yeah.
And, all I remember about the tournament was our boys. The way they were supported, it's as if like they were actually Thailand. There was this group of supporters, I think from the high school or university, and they were just supporting our team, the men's team, for whatever reason. Maybe they had some good-looking players in the team. we came off. Not me. I was of course the team manager, but the younger guys, they came off the third and fourth game, and Thailand was due to play the next game, which was the finals. And all I remember was the supporters were not even watching their own team. They were just taking photos with our players, and our players was going to the stand. And I think I tried to sort of ask them to relax a bit, because obviously we didn't win the gold medal. Right? I mean, we won a bronze, which was a big achievement. But their home team is playing. Like, they didn't pay attention. At least for one half, they didn't pay attention to their home team playing. Maybe it's our white jerseys and maybe some good-looking boys. I don't know. But it was a very interesting experience. So that was my second SEA Games, but as team manager. The first SEA Games I played in 1995. But I think the challenge with 7s and 15s is probably how a union needs to manage expectations. Because I know for a fact that a lot of sports council and Ministry of Sport actually only fund or support the 7s program. So I think there needs to be a strategy in terms of how management need to balance 7s and 15s. Because at the end of the day, I think 15s is the game where everyone can play size. 7s at the top end become really a very sort of focused, pressurizing situation, right? Because there's medal expectations, especially at the SEA Games and maybe even the Asian Games with maybe the likes of Malaysia, right? Yeah, I know, because I know your program is quite a full-on program with almost full-time players.
Okay, so from there, Singapore, then the involvement with World Rugby, how that movement from then, and then obviously World Rugby was probably more around Asia Rugby, but World Rugby involvement for you, how did that come about?
I have stories for everything.
Yes.
if I talk too much, please stop.
Well, it's all about you, so don't worry.
I'm also curious
so
when you
in between, actually, I had a stint at the Football Association of Singapore. So I spent 4 years at the Football Association, and that also came about by chance. I was looking to leave Singapore Rugby after 15 years. 15 years is a very long time in any country. And I actually went for a function, ran to an old friend, and I was actually asking for a job for my friend who was jobless at the time. And then this guy asked me, Adrian Quack, he asked me, are you looking to move? I say, I'm looking to move, but I'm not actively searching. That's me. I'm comfortable in a place. So so I just had 2 interviews with the CEO of Football Singapore, and I got a job, and that was at the start of 2011. So I was brought in as part of succession planning for him, because he's been around for a while. So I spent about 4 years in football, which was I think an eye opener in terms of coming from Singapore Rugby, where we do everything. Even though I was GM or head of rugby, we still move the A-boards.
Yeah.
We still carry the water for the players. We book the fields. We transport the balls. We carry, we clear up. We do everything basically. You write the sponsorship proposal.
We understand.
So football was a bit different. When I came on, Football Association had about 100 staff. They even had a full-time kit man. So that was my biggest wow. We have a full-time kit man. Like for us, you got to ask the players to put the thing in a bag, and then you got to send it to the laundry shop. So
you might missing stocks.
And I came into a time at football where the national team was fairly successful, and we had some good events in Singapore, like the Lion City Cup. Then the national team under Radi won the Suzuki Cup for the 4th time in 2012. So it I think it was good for my career, working in football, just to experience something out of rugby. Yeah, and probably if I didn't get
like to have
that
minions
job,
for
I
you?
probably wouldn't get a World Rugby job. Sorry.
What's it like to have minions working for you rather than doing everything?
I don't know. I'm kind of a hands-on person, so it took a while for them to get me into the system, because I was probably seen as an outsider, right, coming in. I don't have a football background, even though I play football for school only. So, and my brother was the captain. So, but yeah, I think when I came on, people maybe were a bit wary, but I think I changed things around, because we were such a huge organization, and we weren't in one building. We were like two buildings which was connected, but
Right.
I made people talk to one another, rather than send emails. So I think I said in another interview, I think that's my legacy for football, where people begin to talk and understand each other rather than emails and stuff. So the need to understand what the other person is doing, whether it's within the FA or outside the FA. So that was my legacy for football. And how I got the World Rugby job.
Yeah, Rugby Service Asia. Tell us
Yeah.
a bit about that.
So I think the position of the boss at football would never come around. Again, somebody said, "Do you have a LinkedIn account?" I said, "I don't." So I started doing my LinkedIn account at work, which I shouldn't do. But every day I was just doing my LinkedIn account. It's like around 2014, and then 2 weeks later, I got a blind email, cold email, asking me whether I'm interested in a rugby job regionally.
Wow.
So if I didn't set up the LinkedIn account, maybe I wouldn't be in this role. So it's been 6 years in this role for World Rugby. I suppose I'm very thankful and very lucky that I'm able to work in sports in different environments. So
what was it?
LinkedIn account, I wouldn't be speaking to you now.
Well, the thing was, is like how did you? Was it good to feel to know that you were going back to rugby?
Oh yeah, of course. And the fact that when the headhunter actually came down to Singapore, and that was just to meet the candidates first time around, and the fact that it was an international rugby board. I mean, that's what the job. I was thinking, wow, if I get this job, I think going back to rugby is one, and then you're actually working for the international body. So yeah, I was hopeful, but yeah, the interview.
Service manager.
Sorry, what is actually the role?
Your rugby services
manager.
Rugby Services Asia, manager.
So World Rugby, basically in Asia, we have the regional body, Asia Rugby, and then Asia Rugby itself has about 33 odd members, and out of the 33, we have about 24 or 25 World Rugby members, of which 17 are full members. So Asia Rugby and the 17 full members actually receive funding for development programs from us. Japan, of course, being the exception, because they play in the Rugby World Cup, they do get funding. And then teams that play in the 7 series or the Olympics, they get some sort of supplementary funding to support their program. So my role is actually, I'm the interface for World Rugby in this region. So like I said earlier, the 6 region, Oceania, Asia, of course, Africa, Europe, South America, North America. So they have a rugby services manager in each of these regions. So we are we are sort of for one of a better word, maybe we are sort of the go-to person in the region. So what I do is actually work with Asia Rugby and the member unions in terms of how they develop their strategic plan, they develop their priorities, and then also in terms of managing our we call it investment. It used to be grants, but we call it investments into these countries, how they use the money, whether it's for staffing, whether it's for development programs, whether it's for T&E, the courses that you go to, the Jin runs, those are the sort of things that I work closely with Jin with, just to make sure that we are not as obviously as rich or wealthy as other international federations. So just making sure that unions who are fairly ambitious have a strategic plan, they know how to prioritize, because every single union will want to do everything, right? You want to do 7s, you want to do 15s, you want to get So I think it's just making sure that they are very clear in their goals, even discussing with them their commercial plan, their sponsorship plan, and where the unions headed. I think that's really key.
And then Asia is
that's part of my role.
Yeah, Asia is such a big region. I mean, there's this picture. Tell us a bit about what was happening here. Is this where is this Pakistan
Iran?
or
No, this is
Iran?
Iran. So Iran is an associate member of World Rugby. They are like full members. So this was last year, just before the fasting month. So in Iran, right, there's actually 2,000 female players playing sevens, and this picture was actually a training session that was held by 3 teams. So they actually played like a sevens warm-up games when I visited the session. There was also a beach rugby competition, full-on contact in Tehran when I went. There was a men's competition. So yeah, so there's actually a lot of rugby going around in Asia, and especially on the back of the Rugby World Cup last year. And obviously the Olympics is pushed to next year. So part of the World Rugby program is the Impact Beyond program, which is a legacy program to make sure that you don't just host the Rugby World Cup and then it goes away, right? So it's actually how also for unions, sharing with unions how do we translate. Every union, like you say, want to host a tournament or game. What is actually the objective? So a game or a tournament can come into a country and then it goes away. And then at the end of it, you either don't win the game or don't win a medal, or you are in deficit, which is even worse. So I think it's just discussing with unions, to have a different perspective on why they host tournament. So nowadays, when unions like Singapore host the 7 Series, GIN has a comprehensive T&E program that's not only for Singapore but for the region, because you have experts coming in from other parts, right? People are really experienced, for example, in citing or in judicial or in medical. So I think unions need to start thinking that way. And then I'm not an expert. Probably you are more, Rashid, in terms of broadcast and commercialization, how they can monetize their various programs, like the T&E program, even their online shows, how they can actually engage, besides engaging people like us.
Exactly. Many ways to skin a cat. Now, but finally, before we do say our goodbyes, and this one, I think a lot of people would want to know, what was the Rugby World Cup experience in Japan? Because it was such a unique Rugby World Cup, according to many people who attended it, whether as a spectator, whether as someone who was there to work, official or player. There was something very unique about the Japan experience at the Rugby World Cup.
I think the hospitality of the Japanese is like top notch, and the fact that I mean I'm sure you guys have seen videos, right? I didn't experience it myself, but just like the different host cities or prefectures or the host of the training venues, the fact that the people actually learn to sing or speak the language of another team, like the Russian and the Welsh. I remember going for the semi-finals. I think Wales was in the semi-finals, right? So because I go to Japan quite a bit in the lead up to the World Cup because of work, so I sort of played host to my colleagues. We were there for the annual general meeting, the congress, around the Rugby World Cup finals, and we went to a small tempura place, various nationalities. My colleagues, Aussies, British, Welsh, and there was these 4 Japanese guys, right, who started singing the Welsh national anthem in Welsh.
Wow,
that is just amazing. And then, but you see the videos, like they really go out of the way to actually host the teams and the fans
and make them feel welcome.
And then if you notice this Rugby World Cup, I think it was the first time teams actually lined up together to bow after the game. I hope that becomes, a continued practice, because that's just fantastic. The Japan
scripted one where those
no, it wasn't. I think it was just started by 1 or 2 teams, and then it just got the ball rolling. Because in Japan they have this thing they call no side. So basically, and it's the same like us, right? After the game, we meet for drinks and dinner. So no side basically means after the end of the game, you are just part of one side. There's no side.
Yeah.
It's a unique culture, and just being part of it. I wasn't fully involved in the organization. I was more around the legacy program. That photo, basically, Japan hosted all the 30 odd unions in Asia for an exchange program. There was also other exchange program with kids. There was actually kids involved, learning the culture, learning the game. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I mean, for me personally, at the start of the World Cup, I also had the opportunity to bring my family at my own cost, and of course Dublin is so far away at HQ, so at least they get to meet some of my colleagues, get to see the temporary Rugby World Cup office. So yeah, it was a unique experience for me on a personal front, because for the first time my family got to see sort of where I work when I go to Japan. But on a professional front, I think the work that's been done by the people of Japan, Asia in terms of legacy program, and my colleagues who were directly involved, I think more than 10 years of planning. Of course, there was always the pulling hair. You you attend meetings where people are pulling hair. My events, right? I'm sure you guys know, like Cobra dance, right? You pull your hair, like it's going to happen.
Let's not talk about
it. The official plan is going to happen.
It's a miracle every time we pull it off. It's always a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's such a miracle.
The fact that it went beyond expectations on all fronts, off the field, on the field. The legacy program, for example, Asia Rugby targeted 1 million new participants, but they had 2 million. They had 1 million before the World Cup, a year or a month before the World Cup. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a 1 year post-event report. There was 2 million new participants. So the work continues. Now it's talking about retention with the Asia Rugby staff, retention in terms of participants. You need more coaches, you need more referees. So and actually the Tokyo Olympics was supposed to be the flow on. So we had COVID, but if you look around, the work that's being done virtually is just crazy, right? Amongst unions, amongst Asia Rugby, and you guys as well. I didn't realize 40 over episodes. I only know 2 or 3. It's just amazing that how even a club, a club within a country is adapted to connecting to stakeholders. I think that's really key.
Yeah, we were that bored.
You sometimes don't. Sometimes we underestimate the importance of programs like this.
One of the comments we had was, thank you for conducting memories, because when some people dialed in, they dialed in from Australia or from other parts, and then they
South Africa and
so it's pretty
Netherlands.
Touching moment, you can say.
I think we are in Singapore, Malaysia. We are pretty lucky. We can move around. I have colleagues who, for example, in Spain at the start of COVID-19, they can only go 500 meters.
Wow.
Radius, and people will find 501 meter, they will actually find something like that. So I think it's really important to stay connected to not only to us players, but I think more importantly to beyond that, your stakeholders. It's really key. And I think this program, while there could be uncensored stuff, but at certain levels, I think it's really important for your club members, and beyond that, the rugby community in Malaysia.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of uncensored stuff. We're okay with that.
We let the higher ups deal with the serious stuff.
Yeah.
Tagline is.
I was a bit apprehensive about coming onto the show, actually. So
No, never be worried. It's us that's worried about whether our guests will talk.
It was. I remember the first show for Asia Rugby. Somebody even, I can't remember the host name. Even Rod went.
Oh, Rod.
Oh, that's a long answer. I actually said sorry.
Yeah. We've even had Rod on the show as our guest. So
okay.
Yeah, that's how wild we've been going. We've had our rivals on the show. So So that's
I think in this time of the pandemic, I think it's really key that. I mean, we always put aside our rivalries after the game, but I think it's really important for people who are in position or influence like you guys to really bring the community together. Whether even if it's just Cobra Old Boys or just the Malaysian rugby community, it's very, very important. People underestimate the power of such.
You know that, right? He's at position of influence.
You're hosting a show, so you are in a position of influence, right?
You know what?
I'm calling you a social media influencer, so I don't want to use that term.
I would love to have the Singapore president and the Malaysian president together on the show one day under Cobra show.
I think they're quite so you should. Anyway, you know Terence, right? I mean Terence played for Singapore. So back to the Fandi Ahmad. I think I have to not accept that because there's a lot of better players.
I know. No, you know, you guys are the Fandi Ahmads of Singapore rugby because you know the 90s, and I mean
Right.
even though I mean it's you guys, like I said, you know, that's why I asked about, you know, that game. Do you remember when you mentioned that 100 over score? I remember that looking at that, and I think it was also in our not necessarily the back page, but
I going to the tournament. I had two bags, two luggage. One luggage was for my mid-year, final year uni exam. One luggage was all my rugby gear, and I never opened this luggage. I was not prepared for my mid-year exams, and I think hindsight after the tournament, I think we were also not prepared for that tournament. So
From what I hear, I don't think you ever opened that bag. You're still just a rugby bag for the last 20, 30 years.
yeah. My uni friends will agree.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, Ridzal. It's been over an hour. My God, we didn't even realize. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been really great.
Thank you very much. And
thank you for sharing all your stories, especially not just yourself, but you know, give a better understanding what Singapore's rugby is all about. I think that's something that really needs to be understood because you know there's so much, so many assumptions, so much that we don't know about the other side, and it's good that everyone gets to know. And this line can make, like you said, you know, it's very important to have a communication during this pandemic, and instead of just you know having so much rivalry, we're opening up a lot more open communication between us, which is what rugby is all about anyway.
Maybe before you shut me off, just one thing. I think last weekend UAE Rugby hosted a Get Into Rugby course for 100 teachers, and I think there were educators from 8 countries involved in that course. So I think that's the sort of thing that we all can learn from one another.
Yes.
And in my role, I always try to push because I don't have all the answers. I mean, World Rugby don't have all the answers. So sometimes you just need to learn from the people beside you.
Exactly.
I think that's
that's what Singapore Rugby did to you, right? Just throw you in the deep end, hopefully you find some answers.
we were thrown into the deep back in '95, but I think it was for the better of Singapore Rugby and for all of us. I think I'm still very thankful for the opportunity.
I think Singapore Rugby has a lot to thank for guys like you grinding it out.
The new team, so I cannot take credit for what they've achieved. You know, for the last 5 to 10 years is a bit away, so they've done some good things as well. Like they lost to Malaysia at the SEA Games. I was there in 2015. You know that final at the Commonwealth Games Stadium, and then 2017. 2017 we lost to Malaysia.
Yeah, you lost to us. 2017.
Yeah, that was a fantastic atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember it's at Kelana Jaya Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah. And the girls won the bronze. Remember? Anyway, our girls won the bronze. Yeah. That was like a big achievement under Nick and Fires, our 2 Cobra coaches, and TJ. Okay. There's always Cobra involvement everywhere, at every level. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you out there, don't forget to we still have our Cobra bar and restaurant opening from 12 to 11 now, not 12 a.m. It's 11 now in Selangor. Mondays to Saturdays, of course, for inquiries, do give us a call at 012-212-7000. But from the 2 of us, Dylan, myself, and of course our guest Ridzal, it's been a pleasure having you guys on. Before you do that,
there's no training, guys. There's no training for the seniors and the juniors. Practice the SOPs. Stay safe. Yeah.
Yes. Stay home. You've got nothing better to do. Stay home. You know, drink a beer. I don't know. Yeah, do anything, whatever you want to.
So we can go back to training and coaching.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Good night, and see you again for Friday's session on Cobra 3. Bye-bye.